What is up, doers, pooers, and 2022ers? Thanks for sitting down at the messy desk with me this week. Today, I thought I'd go against the grain a little bit. You know, they always say new year, new me. And with respect to that, I thought I would look at the oldest project I could find on my octatrack, find the old me, and just fucking roast him. You know? Look how little I knew. Look at the things I didn't know. Look at how silly I was, how naive I was, how virgin, and sad, and lonely I was. And now we can compare it to me, a big, heavy Chad with a wife and kids, and a knowledge of what parts do. And we can kind of laugh and learn and grow together. This is going to be a very easygoing video. I have an ear infection, okay? Never had an ear infection in my life, but now I have one. It's new experiences. We're crossing barriers. I have fungus in my ear. Maybe that's too much information for you, but I think some people out there are going to want to know that they're watching a Last of Us zombie teach them about the octatrack. So I'm sorry. I got spores coming out of my ears. Just don't look over here. It's not a big deal. We'll get through it together. But first, let's talk about this cool hat. The Bofa is normal sized. Nick complained very loudly to the person who made the hat and said, "What the fuck is this? You need to make it smaller sized than you did the first time. You know, I'll send you the other one back." And the maker, God bless their heart, said, "You can keep both of them." And we appreciate them for that. So anyway, just had to get that out of the way. Let's talk about this project and just make fun of myself a little bit. What do you say? Let's do it. Okay, so this project I made way back in yonder year of 2017. Now, I know that sounds crazy because back then, anything was possible. We all hated Donald Trump. I mean, I suppose we still do. We all were just out partying, kissing each other, spitting in each other's mouths. Nothing mattered. We were just vibing. Corona was a beer. COVID was somebody saying the word corvid wrong. And you're like, why are you talking about ravens and shit? I don't know. It was the wild, wild west. And so Daniel, who had just moved into this house with his beautiful girlfriend at the time, was like, hey, I'm going to sample Naruto. Like a bunch I'm going to sample Naruto. And that's what I did. I was watching a ton of Shippuden at the time. At least once a year, I go through this period of time that I like to call anime season, where all I want to do is watch anime. And it is all that I do. I watch so dang much of those Japanese cartoons that my brain starts to melt a little bit. And then, very abruptly, as quickly as it came, like a flash flood or a thunderstorm in the Midwest, it goes away and I never want to look at anime again until, of course, next anime season. So when I made this project, I was in the throes of anime season and I was watching just an unhealthy amount of Naruto Shippuden. And so I sampled the OST, the soundtrack, because it's actually very good. The score is quite good for Naruto. And yeah, so I sampled this bit of it here. Let's just go ahead and listen. Tell me you can't feel the commentary on never-ending cycles of revenge and war. I mean, it's just so good. So I sampled that. And listen, some things about me really have changed going forward in life, with the octatrack specifically, but some things, they just stay the same. So I have it pitched down quite a bit here. Let's take a look. Yeah, it looks like I have it pitched down -8 semitones, so a little bit more than a fifth. I guess maybe I tried it as a fifth and I didn't like it. Or maybe I didn't. I don't know. I don't even know if 2017 Daniel knew what fifths were, you know, except for fucking alcohol, dude. I don't drink. I've never been a drinker. But regardless, we do have these slices here, so let's just listen to those. Something you'll notice very quickly is that these slices here are not going to be used at all because 2017 Daniel, much like 2021, 2022 Daniel, as soon as he finds something, that was a weird way to pronounce that, as soon as I find something that works, I very rarely try something else. This is a shortcoming of mine. Don't replicate it, but it's something that I do nonetheless, and it sounds like this. And if I play the slices, you'll hear exactly that. Now, something that I notice right away when I look at this is that the scale is 1x. This is something that I very rarely do now. Almost without fail, if it's a sample that I'm slicing, I will put this at half speed. And the way to do that is to go to pattern settings, put scale per track, go back here. We're going to push this back to 64 and then make this half speed. And what that does is essentially gives you 8 bars. You just only have 8th note resolution instead of 16th note resolution. Really, really handy at extending sequences without having to fuck around with trigger conditions. I love trigger conditions, but a lot of the times all they're doing is extending your sequence to 8 bars anyway, so you may as well just make your life easier if you don't need 16th note resolution and just do this. So that's something that I should have done. Something else you need to do in that instance is bump this up to 128 so the sequencer actually doesn't reset for 128 steps, because if not, it'll just keep resetting after 4 bars and your efforts will have been for naught, and don't make that mistake. So we have our sample, and honestly, I still work this way, where I slice a sample before anything else. It's something that I've tried to remedy more recently because I think it has its own shortcomings. Like, you can get really caught up in the inherent rhythms of a sample and feel like you can't slice it. But if you just put some drums down, you can push yourself to get your own rhythm, or, you know, forge your own rhythm through the drums. And it's very, very useful. So I've been trying to do that more. But for a very long time, all I would do is slice the sample first, then put down a halftime snare. And I did, so let's listen. We love it. Is there any sort of variation? I mean, no, a little bit. There's some... Okay, all right, there are some trigger conditions. There's some little... I think this might be reversed or slowed down, so there's a little bit of something going on. 2018, Daniel had something going on. 2017, I don't really remember. I think it's late 2017. I knew what was up a little bit. So what next? Well, a kick drum, of course. Is it a good kick drum? Is it a kick drum that really fits? No, it's that kick drum. It's the one that I used a ton. I don't know why I liked this kick drum ever. I actually used it in my first video and say that it's like my favorite kick drum, but I listen to it now and I'm like, Dan? That sounds like shit, my guy. But I don't know. It probably works in some instances. I just don't think it fits this particular beat, but let's listen anyway. I guess in context, it doesn't sound that bad. But I think, you know, there's some things I could have done better. Something I could have done is drop the hold time a little bit so it's less boomy and echoey like this. And it's more tight like this. I don't know. Small, subtle things like that were not the purview of 2017 Dan. 2017 Dan didn't even go by Dan. Fun fact about that, little aside here, we're really kind of doing a throwback to old videos where I would just talk about whatever, whenever, for whatever length I want. I think I need to get back to that a little bit because who fucking cares? This is all a joke anyway. Here's the story of how my name became Dan. I joined Matt over at EasyBot's Discord. I'll put his channel up here. I never know which way to point. And I joined and I made myself a little nickname in the Discord server. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if I set my nickname to Dan the YouTube Man? Because that rhymes. And listen, I'm a sucker for puns. I'm a sucker for jokes. I'm a sucker for goofs and gaffs. I love rhymes. They're pun adjacent. I always like to say, put that on my gravestone. Rhymes are pun adjacent. And so I did do that. Side effect of this is that everybody thought I went by Dan. And so everybody started calling me Dan. And now I'm just Dan. It's fine. I think it's fitting for a dude with kids. Dan definitely has kids. Danny... No, he's the Grease character that drives really fast in the LA little pits and stuff. Daniel, I don't know, that could be anything, right? It sounds too Bible, but Dan, that's a fat guy with kids. Anyway, back to the project. I have my kick, I have my snare, clap thing. Of course, it's in halftime. Of course, nothing super interesting is going on. Kick pattern, there's some kicky stuff going on. I think I do have some trigger conditions somewhere around here. Yeah, I do. So from the moment I got the octatrack, I knew I liked trigger conditions. I knew that was something I was interested in doing. And so those are probably going to be present in even the oldest of projects, but really kind of fancy stuff, sort of like trig stacking or a lot of more in-depth stuff is definitely not going to be used. We have a bass here. I don't think I did this in this order, but it sounds like this. Looks like I have some trigger conditions here as well, which is nice. This is something I still struggle with, by the way, which is interesting bass lines. I'm just not good at them. I have a really bad habit of just having long sustained bass note, and then the note changes, and long sustained bass note. Not really good at fills, not really good at making them dynamic and interesting. Just a shortcoming of me musically, so this is actually not so far removed from the kind of person I am today. But we'll just move on past that, because it's nothing super crazy interesting. And the next thing we have is a hi-hat, but there's actually no hi-hat in this pattern, because even 2017 Dan was fancy enough to know you gotta save something, okay? If you're gonna have one loop that is largely the same, you gotta save something. So we have this full loop here. It's very groovy. We'll go to pattern 2. You just hold on to your hat a little bit and let's listen. Okay. Listen to that delay. That was fancy. Yeah, so that's all that changes. There's a simple hi-hat pattern with some re-triggering, and there's this little melody that I used. I actually used the same bass sample, just pitched up. I mean, it's not exactly the same sample. The root note of it is higher, but it's the same. It's from the same family of samples, let's say. And yeah, there's some delay and no filtering at all. Of course, why would I filter the low end out of a sample? Who would do such a thing? Did I filter this at all? No, it's just chorus and reverb. And I'm not using the reverb, so maybe it would have been smart to put a filter on that. 2017, Dan. And so anyway, that's all of the compositional material. Let's look at the scenes. 2017, Dan loved low pass filters. And he loved high pass filters. And that's really it. I had a bad habit, and I don't know why I thought this was ever a good idea, of using filters and reverb together, especially low pass filters and reverb. It's not strictly wrong, but if you're gonna do that, you need to filter out the low end from your reverb. And let's see, did Dan do that? Spoiler alert, Dan did not do that. And so it can get really messy, so a smarter thing to do would be to filter this pretty heavily. So only the high end is being reverberated. The high pass filter is kind of whatever. Now, listen, since this project, I've definitely grown a lot as an octatrack artist. I know for one thing that parts are indispensable for making a project interesting and dynamic, using different scenes, effects combinations, sample combinations, resampling, all this stuff. But I think also that 2017 Dan, old Dan, had sort of a primal enjoyment and love for the octatrack in a way that I feel like I'm missing sometimes these days. I feel like I too quickly get into my head about something not being good enough or not being complex enough or satisfying enough as a full track, instead of just like vibing and enjoying the music and bobbing my head back and forth like this, which is like the whole reason I own the octatrack. I mean, aside from career implications with YouTube and stuff now, it's not a career, but you know what I mean. The whole reason I owned an octatrack in the first place was not because I made good music on it. It was because I made music in a way that was fun for me and that made me feel good inside. So I think sometimes it's useful to go back to a younger, more naive me and look at how he made music and look at the ways that he enjoyed making music and remind myself that I should do that too. I should go back to making these one or two pattern projects where I just slice a sample, put down some simple drums, make some simple scenes, and just have fun and not get in my head as much. So I don't know, I'm going to end this video on that kind of note. If you're making music and you find yourself being less satisfied these days, if you find that you're struggling a little bit to find that passion and that enjoyment that you used to have, go back and look at an old project. Go back and look at the passion and the verve with which you made music when you didn't have the foreknowledge that, you know, you probably shouldn't put reverb on everything, or you should probably gain stage the right way, or you probably need a B section, my guy. Stuff like that. Go check that out and maybe remind yourself the things that made you really happy. For me, it was slicing a Naruto sample, making something that sounds one way, sound another way, and just have fun with it. That's the kind of core primal joy that the octatrack brings me. So kind of looking back and looking at this was really nice for me. It was really kind of refreshing, I think is the word I would use, to get me back to a state of just, I don't know, not being so in my head. And I hope that maybe you can do the same if you're struggling with the same thing. So, in any case, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for hanging out with me for a kind of weird, vibey, aimless video. This is really, really kind of a hangout video. I got spores coming out of my ears and it itches and it fucking sucks, man. I got vertigo up the wazoo. I don't know why I'm telling you any of this, but now you know it. So you can put on the Wikipedia for the Messy Desk. He had an ear infection one time. Hopefully it never happens again. I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me this week, because you could have sat down with anybody on the holding internet, and instead you chose to sit down with me, a dude with the worst posture and the fuzziest fungusy ears around. There's a fungus among us, and you chose to sit down with him. And I think that's super fucking rad. I want to thank you so much for doing it. I will be back next week with a new video. I think Octomom and I are going to do a Q&A. So if you have any questions for that Q&A, drop them down there. Send some to Ricky. Don't just send me like, how do you route your audio and how do you put a through machine up your butt? Like, I don't want to answer those questions, really. I mean, I can and I will. And if you have questions about the octatrack, I'm always happy to answer. But not in a Q&A video. You know, like, ask me questions about, like, how does my butt feel? You know, do I have boobs? If I flex so hard, will I look like Johnny Bravo? I'm already answering that one. And it's yes. Yeah, drop questions down below. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to answer your questions. I'd love to feel egoistic and like information about me is a priority. So drop those down there and we'll record that for you. And it'll be so super cute. And you'll say couples goals, relationship goals, and you'll, you know, wish you were us. And that's great. I love that. But be happy being you too, maybe, or don't. I don't know. It's okay to wish you were somebody else sometimes. That's life. I will see you next week. And until then, I'm Daniel, this is the Messy Desk, and I love you more than I love my overpriced X-Files t-shirt. Why is there Japanese on it? I don't know, but it looks cool, and that's all that matters. Trust no one. That's the wrong sleeve. Trust no one. I love you. Peace.